Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Educator Experience podcast. My name is Sally Carter, and this is the space where we take the time to really get to know our fellow educators, their journeys, their life stories, what inspires them. And speaking of inspirational, today's guest is nothing short of it. Wolfgang Schifer has done it all. He's had a career in trades, he's an entrepreneur, he's passionate about teaching English and business, and has worked as a leader in higher ed. But even more than what he's done, he's a soul that seeks adventure for better or for worse, that finds lessons learned by living and loving life. And I feel that like that's the general vibe of our conversation. One of the things that we talk about in this conversation is the OODA Loop, OODA, which is a decision making framework. And Wolfgang breaks it down for us how he incorporates it into his life and how us educators can benefit from it as well. We chat about how it's really important to strive in life to be adding value through inspiring people, which I think is a really interesting way of framing one's purpose. And we even talk about what I like to call the zone, that moment in exercising where your breath, your body, your mind all kind of align and come into one smooth, powerful state. Wolfgang and I both have our individual interpretations of what that moment or what's happening in that moment, what it's all about. It's a deep conversation. We talk about a number of different topics, and I hope you like it. So without further ado, let's get to it with Wolfgang Schifer.
Being an educator is one heck of a lonely journey, but every step holds a story, an experience that shapes how we teach, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Educator Experience. I'm your host, Sally Carter, and together we'll explore the moments that define us as educators. Through authentic conversations and shared experiences, we're building a community that connects, reflects, and inspires, all while breaking down barriers in education, one story at a time. You are not alone. Let's grow together.
My idea was there are some podcasts about teaching that are really about tips and tricks. How can you get better at your job? And don't
Mhm.
get me wrong, those are amazing. But what I really aim to do is connect with people. So, educators creating or just talking about themselves. Let's get to know each other and create community around that. There are tips and tricks that come out of that, but really it's about connection at the end of the day. Yeah. So whether it is an absolutely abysmal experience where we fell in our head and but learned from it, there's connection that can happen in that, or an extremely emotional or exciting experience. There's connection that can come out of that. Regular schmegular people sharing their stories.
I really like the regular people. This world needs more regular people to realize that
Right.
they're educators. We are all educators in some way, shape, or form,
In
right?
some sense, right? I want to talk to the average educator. I want to hear their story. Like literally about connection. It's about experiences and sharing that. So tell me a little bit about you. Welcome to the Educator Experience podcast.
Thank you. Well, I have a really interesting background, and the way I look at my life is every little chapter of my life is a contribution to my future and where I'm at today. So I've taken everything from the past. We're all some of our experiences. So
Yeah.
I've always looked at life as a little bit of an adventure, and I've got a lot of different experiences. So I'm going to give you like really high level, kind of my path and trajectory in life. I come from a really unique family where my father is German and my mother is Colombian. I was born in a Colombian cultural household, very much Colombian, under a German regime in a Canadian country in northern
Wow.
Alberta. So my
In in northern Alberta?
yeah. So really
Okay.
weird to start off, but as a kid, you don't recognize just how much that impacts you until later on in life. Much like we all kind of look back and reflect on how we're raised and figure out, oh, that's why I'm the way I am, or that's how I do things. But that's down the road. So my first kind of career in life was heavy duty mechanics, which was something that I never really liked doing, nor did I really want to do, but it was something that I chose to do because at a very young age, I always felt education is free I wanted to go to university. I could never afford it, but I always thought the library is free. I can go in the library anytime I want and read. So I loved learning, which I'm proud of to say now. As a young kid, I said I always want to be good at things I'm not good at. So all my categories are high versus I'm really good at one thing, but not good at this. And so looking for my lot in life, my place to start off, I had two criteria: make the most amount of money in the short amount of time. And
That's good.
that's the reality of it. And I want my bottom rung of the ladder to be a really good wage. And so the icing on the cake was I was never really good at mechanics. So I wanted to do something that paid me well, that always have work, and I'm learning something I'm not naturally good at. And that is really important
Interesting.
because mechanics has taught me so much later on in life. So that was my first career. And after I did my apprenticeship, it was either settle down in that small town and pay like $300,000 for a mobile home, which I wasn't about to do, or go explore the next chapter of my life, which I did. And I moved to the big city, Edmonton, and I did real estate. So I did real estate for a few years, and I was part of a land development company that I was privileged enough to have that experience for a few years. And then I kind of semi-retired, I guess you could say, to South America when I was 25. And I thought I was just going to run the show down there with my business experience. And it was a really, really rude awakening. So I'm dual citizen. So I've traveled in South America my whole life and I always wanted to live there. And at 25, I said when I was 17, I'm going to retire at 25. And I did kind of
Is that I
semi-retire.
never said that at 17. I did not know that that's even something 17-year-olds say.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
guess I'm happy I thought about it. I don't know what
Yeah,
other
you're like,
17-year-olds
"I'm done
think
at
nowadays.
25. Working is not my thing."
Right. Well, I loved doing adventurous stuff. So, working at the mine, so to speak, I was like, "Man, there's more to life." Like, people work there, and that's fantastic. They work there for 30 years, great pension. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was too young, too ambitious, too driven, too much spirit, and not enough highway. So I looked for that highway that I can just roll through and run. And when I was in South America, same thing, spirit, drive, motivation, trying to find my lot in life there. I ended up looking for a lot of work, but I didn't have a degree. I didn't have education. I was just savvy and I wasn't going to be a mechanic in South America. That was just not something I wanted to do. So one of my relatives like, why don't you teach English? And I'm like, I don't have a degree. I've never taught English. I don't, they're like, trust me, go apply. So I walked into, like, this academy. It's like, "Hey, I'm looking for a job," and they're like, "Are you Colombian? Or how do we pay you?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Colombian. I have my citizenship, my passport. Like, what do you need?" They're like, "We can pay you in pesos." I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "And you're a native speaker English?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "You start next week." I'm like, "Done."
Boom.
So
Check,
great.
check, check for them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's Colombia is one of those countries where there's the least amount of English speaking people in South America. So there's a huge need. And I didn't recognize that.
Ah.
So I'm walking into this world of teaching English and they're like, yeah, just here's a book, you start next week and get a class. I'm like, I love teaching. And I always wanted to be a teacher when I was younger, but couldn't afford the university. So it was fantastic. And I walked in there and I'm looking at this book and I'm like, this is terrible. Like, why in my mind, why am I teaching, advanced grammar when these learners can't speak or understand the alphabet, like pronounce it? So I kind of just developed my own methodology, which we can get to later. And I loved it. And it was fantastic. I got really good feedback. And then in a few months, the University of Medellin contacted me and they said, "Hey, can you teach over at the university?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I taught there for 3 years, 3, 4 years. And then I taught a lot of private classes as well. So a lot of really high net worth individuals, their children, I was entrusted with their children. I started to take on private clients, masters, PhD learners, like a wide array of learners aging from 50s and up. Through that, I was still bored, so I did a little bit of work with precious metals at the time. I did a couple of companies. I imported, exported wine from Colombia to Canada. I started a clothing design company with my wife at the time, and then decided to move back to Canada because we wanted to kind of see if we could fully retire. So I wanted her passport so we could travel a little bit more. Things crumbled in Canada, and I ended up becoming a mechanic at the municipality And then within a year, I went into the technical trainer role because of my background in education and having a trade. And then from there, I was doing that for some time. And then I took on an associate dean role at a polytechnic, and I did that for a few years. And then now I'm in a position where I'm kind of reorientating myself into a couple different projects and back into the education fields.
So, what stands out to you as the most impactful moment of your career? So, you had a bunch of different stages. Is there one that like you really connected with the most?
I think it's important to state that each part of those chapters overflowed into the next. All the diversity of my experience enabled me to do things differently. I don't want to say better or worse, but differently than perhaps other people in my positions. One thing that I still use today is kind of the root cause analysis with mechanics. So when we encounter a problem, or hurdle no matter what we do, a lot of times people will look at, point A and be like, well, this must be the reason why, but without further diagnosis we might be missing the root cause. So we can transfer that skill set into the educational world, and if someone, for example, is not getting a concept or understanding, or for whatever reason, we as individuals or humans, we just say, well, it must be because, he's just not getting it, or, insert your wealth of examples here. But it's also important to understand that humans are very much like machines, but we're not machines. So we still have a humanity side of things. So we have to kind of dig a little bit deeper and find out, well, why? What's the root cause of all
Yeah,
this?
yeah, yeah.
And so when I was teaching at the university, I recognized that a lot of people were doing their job the way that they've been always taught, because as teachers, they go to school to teach, they understand how to teach, and then they take that framework and they insert it into a classroom with, at the time I had a classroom of 30 people, and then they expect 30 people in that classroom to adhere to the framework that worked when they went to university. And it's like, no one likes that. And so I'm like, okay, so I have a root cause here. I have a problem. This is boring. This is hard. Learning a different language is something that doesn't really jive with a lot of people because it's a box to check in university. You need it to graduate, so you have to do it, and there's no love for it. So one of the things that I used was look for that why, but then I developed another methodology, or at least I'll call it a methodology. One was I use their passion for them. If you have a passion for something, you can put those side by side and leverage. So I'll give you the example in the real world scenario. I used to teach a lot of professionals in the learning or in the making. So lawyers, medicine, practicing medicine, marketing, all, really bright minds. But for English, they're like, whatever. My career is law. I'm going to focus on law, not English, because I'm not going to practice English and law. I said that's fine. But to incite the passion in them, I would kind of veer away from the regular curriculum, and I would use, okay, let's say if the curriculum was, or the competencies was, you have to perform this, or again, the vocabulary of this. But I would incite some passion within them, and I'd say, okay, we have majority of the class are lawyers, so let's divide the class into two. And I would really like your opinion on who here is opposed to capital punishment and who
Mm,
yours for. And well, all of a sudden, you're going to have the lawyers that are for and lawyers that are against. I'm like, great. Convince
mhm.
the other side why you're right, but use English, and then we'll write down the vocabulary. We'll use your expressions, and that's something that really inspired people. And that goes to my next form of methodology, which I think education from a broad viewpoint is under three categories. One, education is to facilitate. So I don't have to be a doctor to facilitate knowledge to doctors. I can just
Mm,
facilitate information. The next tier above that is education. So then I have all this information about, let's say, surgery. And this is all my opinion, by the way. Disclaimer: I'm not a certified bachelor's or
Just
master's,
FYI. Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
this is truly what I believe in. I can facilitate that information with historical background and education from years of facilitation and
Mhm.
experience, and then incorporate that into the education where I'm like, okay, well, this is how you make a surgical cut. And I find that 40% of the time, if you do it this angle, you might find that this, and then there's all this experience that comes with the education. But then the 3rd tier, which I try to live in, is inspiration. Meaning you
Mm.
don't have to really be there to facilitate or educate. I think a really key component of education is inspiration. If I can inspire a room of people to be self-starters and to be excellent, then I don't really need to be there all the time to educate. I am igniting their own soul and heart to be the best that they can be. How do I do that? And I find little ways to inspire people to be able to be those self growth, their own water, their own nurture. And I'm there is to just say, hey, you got this in you. Let's water it a little bit, and at the end of the day, you can flourish. And I find
So,
that's way more effective.
yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. It's more of guide on the side than, lecturer, for example. So,
Mhm.
what are some techniques? Like, how would you inspire a room? What do you do?
I think from my experience, I'll use something that I'm obviously accustomed to. So you're going to have different areas of or categories of learning, right? So I can't say that this will work for a history class or for English. You'll have to find your own inspiration. But with my background in mechanics, I usually try to inspire people by saying, like I mentioned before, machines are like humans, right? And they're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. How? I'm like, well, if you have a Ferrari, do you feed it good fuel or bad fuel? Like, well, I'm going to put the most expensive fuel in there. And I said, oh, fantastic. So do you think you are a Ferrari or do you think you're like an old beat up Chevy truck that's from like, 1920s and just rotting in a field? Everyone wants to be the best that they can be naturally, but I don't think we foster that. So people should look at themselves as I'm a Ferrari. I'm like, great. So are you going to put mud in your fuel tank or healthy food? As soon as I say that, most people kind of look at the bag of chips that they have in their hand and they're like, maybe, right. And so
Yeah,
if you
yeah, yeah.
make a connection with something about that person where they want to strive to become better, all of a sudden mechanics turns really interesting. And it's like, well, maybe, it's how does that work? Well, mechanics, you have an air intake, we have an air intake. Mechanics actually has electrical neurons, right? That we have electrical neurons. We have a brain, mechanics, you have an ECU. So you start to create this relationship between something that can really matter to you and the subject at hand. And then you have a self interest in it. And then it's like, well, yeah, I can see the correlation. And then all of a sudden it becomes, do you want to be a good mechanic or do you want to be an excellent mechanic? Because anybody can pay for an education, in my opinion. I got nothing against people who have their PhDs and masters. I'm sure you come out of it great on the other side, but you're paying to sit in that chair and your
Mm.
pass rate is 50%. Trades, you need 70%. So you're already having a high bar. And all these people that are passing, I always try to say, do you want to just pass or do you want to be excellent? And the same thing if you're a doctor. Do you want to be the doctor that just gets the job done or do you want to be the doctor that like that guy is the guy to go see? He's worth every penny, a little bit more expensive, private practice, but he's amazing. Well, what makes that doctor different than the next doctor? What makes a mechanic stand out from all the other mechanics? Well, you take
Mhm.
pride in your work and you inspire someone to recognize that if you're willing to take good care of your body, then just as you take really good care of your body, you can take really good care of this machine. It works very similar. So what's stopping you? So inspiring people to make connection for themselves, whatever that is, I think that's where you get the inspiration, that spark, that ability to be like, do I just want to be the regular or do I want to be excellent and stand out and add value and be the one that's, you know,
Impactful.
yes, and
Yeah.
recommended. So that's where kind of mechanics rolls into the educational field, find the inspiration, then moving on, you're able to create that synergy in a classroom to create passion but inspiration at the same time. And then with business, I did some coaching and stuff as well. So I incorporated another technique when I was helping some of the instructors kind of find how to quickly maneuver in a classroom. I used OODA Loop. Have you heard of OODA Loop?
No, I don't think so. 'Cause sorry, can
So,
you say that again?
yeah, OODA Loop,
Ooh,
OODA. So
OODA
OODA Loop,
Loop.
yeah.
Okay, I'm
And so OODA
excited.
Loop is something that I incorporate in everything in my life. And I won't go too deep into like where the history was or how it came about, but it's super interesting if you want to deep dive into it. But it stands for observe, orient, decide, act. And it prevents an analysis paralysis. So a lot of time when you're in a classroom setting and you're in front of 30 different personalities, you need to be either quick on your feet or adapt quickly, or else you're going to lose the attention of the class. So I always help educators or instructors to be saying, okay, you need to observe the room, orient yourself, make a decision on how to move forward, and then act on it and loop back. And that is in business, that is in family life, that is in
Everything.
personal life. You
Yeah.
always need that feedback to reorient yourself to figure out, is this the right path that you're on? And that's implied in mental health and physical health. You always need to have that self check. And that can also be a check in the classroom, check anywhere. You have an observation stage, you're collecting
Mhm.
that data, and then you're making an orientation with the data collected, making a decision based on your best, foot forward, and then you need to act on it. And the result may not be what you wanted, but that information that you receive back from your action will help
Valuable.
you immediately reorient yourself into a state of, okay, I need to do this decision, I need to do that. And then once you figure it out, you need to act on it and get that continuous feedback loop. And that is used everywhere. I use that in my life all the time, all the time.
OODA Loop.
Yeah.
I love this. And it's funny. So, this might be a bit of a sidetrack, but what you're saying, and you're so passionate about the energy that we as people, as professionals, should give to our work life. I feel like it brings up a pet peeve of mine in terms of we can do all of this for our work life, but yet when we get home, sometimes we leave it at the door. And I've always been, it just, I don't know why it made me think of this, but it's like the energy, the compassion, and just the real concentration that we give to our work life, we give to our classrooms, give to the education as a whole, we can then go home and then leave it. And then it's funny because I was literally having conversations with my colleagues recently about how in partnerships, life can be so different. And in my mind, I've always been a big proponent of treating your partnership, your personal relationship, as a business relationship as well. The effort that I give to my classroom, the care, the thought, the preparation, the empathy and compassion, why am I not also giving that at home too? And I know this is a complete, total
No.
sidetrack, but you just brought up, like, you just made me think about just, yeah, literally the conversations I've been having lately about how we get home and we forget about all of that. Like, why aren't we treating our home lives with the same amount of respect, love, and care as we are giving to our work?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so happy you touched on that
I know,
because
it's total sidetrack there,
no,
but
no, no, it's not, it's not. So I had a cork board and I have OODA Loop on there. I have a lot of different
um,
things on there, but one of the things I have on there is a fractal tree. Do you know what a fractal tree is?
no, tell
Okay.
me more.
So a fractal tree, if you can Google it, your listeners can Google it. It's a pretty simplistic geometric pattern, but the reality is the more you zoom into this mathematical geometric pattern, and the more you zoom out, it doesn't matter. It's always going to maintain its original shape. So the way a fractal tree is like it's a Y. And then on each branch of the Y is another Y. And then each branch of that Y is another Y. And it's Y's all the way out. And that's a very simplistic form. And so the more Ys you attach on it and then zoom out, it'll eventually look like a Y. And the more you zoom into it, the original shape is a Y. So I have that on my board because it's a friendly reminder that everything in life is fractals. And I used to have people in my office and I say, okay, so how I am, right, is this is how I am, and you can take the meat, leave the bones. But I have that on the board because I think of, for example, an ant. And I use this analogy. You walk across an ant on the sidewalk walking home. There is a plethora of things that you can do to that ant. You can, and then, fill in blanks. You can step on it, you can squish it, you can brush it aside, you can spit on it, you can magnifying glass it,
Everything.
you can pick it up, take it home and care for it. Like, just think of it. But the way I see it is, how you treat that ant is a representation of how you'd probably want to be treated, or how
Mm,
you want to be treated is a representation of how you would treat your wife or spouse, or how you want to treat your wife or spouse should be an accurate representation of how you treat your employees at work or your learners. So everything is fractalized. And I really do say I have a family. I love my family, but it's also business. I
mhm.
treat my family very much like a business. And some people take that a little weird, but the reality is, again, mechanic wise, my wife, this is her world. This is her shop. I don't micromanage. I don't say you have to. What do you need to be successful in your shop? What tools do you need to be able to raise our children the best possible way? And I'm there to support you because I have my own battles. She has her own battles. So there is a fractal image. So I don't, how I treat my family is also how I treat employees. So I want the best for my wife. I want the best for my children. Why would I not have that for my employees and vice versa? If I'm treating my employees spectacularly at work, then
Why didn't you
why would I,
oh, yes,
right.
yes.
So that fractal tree always helps me to remember that how I treat people ultimately is how I want to be treated. And I always find the lessons in everything that can be applied below, above, lateral, and internal. So a
Mhm.
lesson that you learn at home could also be learned at work. Oh, geez, I recognize that maybe my communication skills need to be improved in this area because me and my wife had it out for whatever reason. And I'm like, maybe I'm doing the same thing with my employees. Or, hey, managing, XYZ at work made me realize that I really need to pick it up here. And then that goes into the other layer of like, well, how am I managing my children? Am I
Right,
really giving the education or the space or the attention? And what is the purpose of being a father if you're not educating and giving all that to your children who absorb it and need it? But if you give everything at work and then withhold or lack with your
right.
children, then what we're doing is we're creating way more work for the human race later on in life because we're getting all these children that are being raised without guidance, without pride, without understanding, without encouragement, without the ability of feeling that they're capable or understanding. And we have this system right now in place that I think it's a little skewed. Um, I think we have a lot of educators that oh, I'm going to be cautious on how to say that. Not, but we're
Select
all
your words.
educators, but I think the reality is we're in a society where a lot of people are opting out to raise children, but the reality is children also is a fractal image of how we were raised, and we have an obligation to raise the best human beings we can. But if you opt out of that, then where is your observation of who you are and how you're doing? And that was actually one of the reasons why I
Right.
wanted to be a father was I'm teaching all these children, I'm coaching all these people, I'm mentoring all these young individuals. So where's my duty to humanity to start from scratch and be like, you know what, I'm going
Mhm.
to do my best to be a really good father. And ultimately, is that not the best educator experience one can have by providing a human product, so to speak, to the world and say, this is the culmination of my entire life experience. And I did the
Amen.
best that I can here. But to then
Yeah.
withhold that and say, no, I'm an educator, but I'm not gonna, you know, I don't know. I'm very passionate about being a father, but it's such a huge reflection. If you can raise a good family, then then obviously you're going to be a fantastic educator. And maybe that's something I take to heart because I see everyone as potential. We're all just children. We're all children. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but I'm,
Never grow up, Wolfgang. I will
right?
never grow up. I am always a perpetual child. Yes.
Yes, we're all children. The more you
100%.
know, the more you realize you don't know. And so we're all just thriving to try to learn as much as we can. Yeah, and I'm very passionate about learning and helping others learn. Now, whether it's
Yeah.
me educating them or not, just to spark this, what's stopping
Curiosity.
you to learn? Go
Yes.
learn,
Yeah.
right?
It makes me think about, and this is kind of a funny story and embarrassing, but it was probably about 20 years ago when I was in corporate management. I remember my brother saying to me, he's like, Sally, you are known as a kind, respectful, empathetic leader in your workplace, but you are a total bitch at home. He was like, why are you two different people? And it made me think so much about the effort that I gave in my workplace versus who I was at home. I was short in my house. Um, I wasn't, I just gave so much to my workplace and I neglected my home life and the people
Why?
that I loved the most at that time. And I just really went on this transformational journey of understanding, why was that exactly? Why? And I worked through that and realize that you really need to put the care, effort, time into your home life just as much as you do your work life.
So
Yeah.
Sally, I gotta dig deeper at why. What was your why for doing that?
Oh, it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. I me, and I'm just speaking off the cuff here. As I said, it was 20, 25 years ago. So I'm a little old now. My memory's a little gone. But maybe, that I just thought that they would be there, and because it wasn't even my partner, it was my immediate family. So, my brother, my mom. So, maybe did I just take them for granted at the time? Whereas I don't take my work for granted. Do you know what I'm saying? 2 different things. So perhaps I treated the situations differently. And I definitely grew from that situation, but that'll forever stand out in my mind. But I think, yeah, definitely. I took my immediate family for granted. They would always be there, have my back, and they definitely called me on it. Yeah.
I'd love to take an opportunity here with this context you provided to shine some light for your listeners because
Mhm.
I've recently had the exact same experience. And
Oh, I'm not the only one.
no, I
That's
think I
good to
think a
know.
lot of people will go through that, and
Yeah.
some people reach them earlier or some people later, and all the context is going to be varied. But something that I like to share is I always felt that if I'm kind of born and raised alongside my sister, right? For example, I'm like, you know me already. You know
Right?
me.
Yeah.
So I withheld all the context and time and energy, and I skipped, let's say, the path or the roadmap from 1 to 10, and I jumped to 11. And that means I was more abrasive, more to the point, more succinct, more direct, because I bypassed the humanity aspect of it
Yeah.
with the expectation that you should know who I am. You've known me my
Right.
whole life. And I was like, no, I was trying to take shortcuts. And so for
Like
me,
that. Yes,
Ye
shortcuts, yeah.
yeah, and I did that, and, again, being a very new father, right? I went from not being a father to a father of many in a very short time frame. That learning curve was drastic, and I'm still learning, and I don't know everything. So again, disclaimer, everything I say now is my current truth. Everything may change tomorrow. But the
Absolutely.
reality is I felt that I was trying to take shortcuts with my family because they should
Mm,
know. My expectation was they
yes,
should know. And then
right.
with work,
I am and where I'm coming from and yes. Yeah.
yeah. So there's that disparity, right? And so the way I was just coaching someone the other day on this is, a lot of times people have the different perspectives, but it's also not just perspectives, but expectations. So if, person A and person B are having a difficult conversation, the expectations of one may be here, but the expectations of the other one may be here. And it's like, where do your expectations lie with the outcome or the why that how you got to where you are now? And then you have an understanding and you can say, oh, well, that makes sense because my expectation of the outcome is here. And I understand that you're over there. Or so just to slowly tweak the expectations of each people, because I feel like the understanding and all the context, one of my difficulties, I think, in life that I'm still struggling with, obviously, is trying to extract other people's expectations without the emotions and all of that shortcut. And then it's like, okay, give me all of that first. Then you can tell me your expectation. And then the time to dedicate saying, here's all of my emotions and where I'm coming from, all these things. Now you know my mind's roadmap and here's my expectation. Can we meet or not? And even if we don't meet, then you understand where I'm coming from. Right?
Mhm.
Then it's like, oh, I understand. I understand now. So then I don't hold any, not that I try to, but everyone's going to have a little bit of like, why don't they think like me, or why don't I do this? And so the animosity level kind of decreases, your empathy increases, and then you have just I would say, slightly to greater outcome if the shortcuts aren't taken.
I love this. Well, thank you for that advice. So, Wolfgang, question for you. So, you've been an educator, you've been a heavy duty mechanic, you've been in administration in higher ed, real estate, you've been retired. What's next for you? You
Um,
are a family man. Yeah,
yeah,
what's
yeah.
next?
I'm going to, so I have like a few projects that I'm working on. I won't go too deep into them because they're in progress. But one of my passions is, again, the fractal. If I want to do the best for my family, then I want to be able to do the best for humanity. So how can I help humanity to the greatest extent? So I'm
Interesting.
in the works to try to develop something where we're optimizing human potential. And I think humans right now are in a phase where education paradigm is shifting. The factory setting is not doing it. AI
Mhm.
is coming in where jobs are being lost. And I'll talk briefly on it. When I was in the Polytechnic, there's a huge push, and I think every government or municipality or jurisdiction pushes people in an area that they need to fill, not the people, but the municipality or the jurisdiction. We need more tradespeople. We need more psychologists. We need the, so then you pump up, oh, look, this, you can have a career in this. And then people are like, oh, I can make 100 grand doing this. It's like, I've known lawyers that are like, Wolfgang, I wish I lived your life. I don't want to be a lawyer. And now I'm stuck because I've never done
Mm.
anything else. I've known doctors and engineers that are like, oh, my dad wanted me to be a doctor, but I really don't want to be a doctor. So we're putting a star shape into the square shape and saying, take it, like it. And then at age 40 or 45, we're experiencing a lot of mental health crisis. People are losing a sense of purpose. People are just, I don't think that works. So what I want to do is optimize human potential, meaning person A may not know what they want to do in life, but after 12 years, they have a choice: go into the workforce with no skills or pay for university education. And the longer you wait, harder it's going to be. And you have to save up for university. Then you got to go 4 years to university. And by the time you finish university, the world's already changed because of, Moore's law and everything else and going on. So what you learned in year one is not applicable when you go out into the world. It doesn't work. And I want to create something where from a very young age, we're optimizing our potential of purpose and interest. Meaning, let's say Sally at age 5, you discover Sally has a really big inclination for math. How do you know? How do you foster that? As parents, we want to push something onto our children. It's natural. We want children to be the best. Well, I was a doctor. So my children's going to be a doctor and they're going to fall. And then at age 17, it's like, well, do what you want. And at 17, who knows what they want? Did you know what you want to do at 17?
No.
No, I've done like 10 careers that I could have
Marine
stayed my,
biologist. I wanted to study
yeah.
whales. Yeah.
What?
I am
So
far from it.
I would ask, why didn't you explore that?
Mhm.
And
Well, I
so,
did. Yeah, I did,
oh,
but
great. But
yeah.
many people don't have that opportunity. And I'll give you another example for that. So if we have someone in a very rural area in America, right? They may be a genius in one area, but not know it because they were never exposed or curated in that area. And then they reach a point of age where life gets, oh, I need to pay bills and need to do this. And then so we have this potential that has been lost. How many people are slipping through the cracks because they can't afford education, they weren't curated to the best that they could be, and then also it gives them purpose. Maybe they really want to be, insert job title there. It doesn't pay a whole lot, but that's what they want. But where they live, there's not that opportunity. So I am working on something to try to, like I said, optimize human potential. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, well, at least I tried. and that's kind of in the works.
So that's your retirement plan.
No, no, that's just me because I got
Retirement at
probably
25 has led to this.
a bunch of ADHD and I can't stop doing things. No, I think I write a lot. My retirement would be just to sit back and relax, watching either the sunrise or sunset and write. I
Um,
love writing. I have a lot of things that I love to share. I have a book, so I did get published on a couple things. So not that I don't want to be here to like put in a
no,
plug.
but tell us about your books. I love this. This is so cool.
Okay.
If you're open to it, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. So
Yeah.
as you know, I run. And through life, every time I run, I always get these. I use those moments for self inspiration, for meditation, for everything. So I started to write down these phrases and quotes. And my sister actually says you need a book, and I'm like, whatever. Like I do a lot of things, and I just shelve it because time, dedication, or other things. But I used to post them, and someone says, "Hey, man, you know what? That phrase actually really helped me out. I really needed to hear that, and that was what I needed." Someone to say, "This impacted me." And so I'm like, "Well,
Mhm.
okay, great. How can I make this into to something that adds value?" So pause on that because I really just want to build this up with another context. So I used to teach English using business books and marketing books. And again, trying to find people that had a niche, leverage that and teach them English with it. So I used to read a book with my English learners called Lynchpin by Seth Godin. Great book, easy read, and then we would spark conversations with it. But one of the big takeaways of that book is how do you add value? What's the difference between Dr. A and Dr. B? Well, if Dr. A adds more value, right? It's more passionate, more inspirational, takes time, has pride in his work, he's going to stand out more than Dr. B. They're both doctors, but one's outstanding and the other one is just a doctor. Nothing wrong with that, but just one stands out. So I always try to find how can I add more value? So I compiled all these inspirations, which I say, and I wrote a book kind of based off the model off those comic books where you have like a day in the calendar and you have a little joke and you laugh at it
Yes.
and start to. So
Yes.
I thought, well, why not inspire people? So I wrote this book with the purpose of three things. One, inspirational quotes to kind of spark their inspiration, to meditate on it. Two, it also serves as an English speaking book. So for all the ESL learners, there's like a journal entry which sparks that passion in them. Then they're able to read something, interpret it, right? So, okay, what does that mean? And then encourage them to write in the language. It doesn't have to be English, it could be any language you want that you're wanting to learn to try to write the words that you want to express, that you have passion in, and then you build up your vocabulary with that. So I'm like, this is an English teaching book or a second language teaching book. But the third purpose of that was it's kind of like the hidden gem of it was building habitual inspirational thoughts in each person. So when you do something once, it's not habit forming. If you're every day looking at things that create inspiration or makes you ponder or think deeply or how to interpret it for you and find its meaning, after about 30 to 60 days, you're then creating a habit of getting inner inspiration and being that self starter of like, how can you find these things in life out of the ether, right? Just then
Mhm.
my book is essentially useless because you're doing it yourself. And so that was the original purpose of the book.
That is so cool. You know what it makes me think of is it's funny that you said how while running, you would have these thoughts. Well, I actually wrote a graduate paper about the experience. Now, this is going to sound super weird, possibly, about I called it the zone, being in the zone. So I used to run 10K, not my current fit state, for anyone who knows me, but I used to run 10K. And then after the really hard part of getting into it, there was the zone part where you are just like, it's everything is rhythmic. There is just this absolute serene peace, and everything is, I don't know how to describe it, in alignment. And the craziest thoughts would come to my mind during
Hmm.
that time. Like I could probably have solved world peace. I've built businesses, like massive businesses from top to bottom, like from who was doing custodial work or like who was
Yeah.
running it, like every little, like tiny little aspect of a massive corporation I developed in my mind during a short period of time while I was running and in that zone. And I wrote a paper about it. And the closest I could come to what it was called was a transformational learning experience of everything that I knew was culminating in my mind and somehow coming together at that point. And it just was this amazing thing. Like I know I remember I'd always text my family afterwards, these elaborate texts of like these things I came up with that would have a significant positive impact on the planet, on the world, on my local communities because I
Yes.
went for a run.
Yeah,
Like, you know? Like, my
100%.
mind did amazing things. And then I also in that same paper, I also said sometimes it would happen to me when I would space out and be washing my hair. You know, you just like it's a moment of spacing out that you just allow your mind to be free or to be creative. And it also happens to me one other time is when I'm reading. And there are actually bouts of I went through like a number of years between my 20s and 30s when I stopped reading because I would zone out when I'd read and I would come up with so many ideas
Yes.
constantly. And it was just overwhelming because I can't do anything about every single one of them. Like I had trouble like when I would read, my mind would enter a different state, the same state as I would equate to running or like being in the shower and just spacing out or whatever. All of those were the same for me. Yeah. So it's really interesting. Like that's where you said you wrote a book about because I'm not saying that maybe our experiences are same, but potentially similar in terms of whatever happens between the mind and body when one is in that particular state. It's fascinating. And that
Totally
was yeah,
nothing
for
you
me,
stated.
yeah.
Yeah, nothing you stated was out of the ordinary. I very much align with that. I'm also a very spiritual person, and I liken running to almost, fasting, where you're putting your body in a state of receivership. So it's like your mind.
Not faster, Wolfgang. I love my eating.
Oh,
I understand the benefits. I'm trying to get there, my friend, but yeah, yeah,
well, it's like running. Any form of endurance of your body, mind, or soul, I think puts
right.
you in a mental state where you're open to receiving or meditating. And I really do think, again, it's all fractal. I think spirituality is also fractal. What we experience on lower levels is a representation of how the higher levels work. And I really do think that running is one of those, when we're causing stress or a form of a harsher form of meditation, it clicks us into that state where we're so intensely focused and our body is so focused on endurance that it allows all the noise to be cleared away and receive. And so that's really why I run. I don't run for distance anymore. I don't run for time. I used to run, 10K, and that's actually my whole book is usually it was all 10K. So I've dialed it
Oh,
down. But
yeah.
yeah, 10K is a sweet spot. And and I fully agree with you. The optimizing human potential came to me in the shower. I think water is a huge key of things. That's why I always try to run around water. Like we can go really in deep, but this is all
Crystal,
part of like education and learning. And so, where are those
yeah.
connection points? What are those? I would say again, what are those fractals? What are the symbols and the meanings behind? Door one also has a huge connection between door five, six, and seven, but and maybe my experience in all these different things in life helped me to understand that everything is connected instead of people going into one career path and being an expert in one thing. They miss out on all the opportunities where there's the connection points and growth points for all the other things in life that we all touch, right? Like running.
Yeah. Something you said kind of resonated with me. And that's so in my mind, I've always thought of that moment in running as a transformational learning state. But I think you nailed it in terms of a meditative state. I never considered that specifically. And I've signed up where I've been accepted to this 10-day silent meditation retreat um, over the summer. And the only bummer about it for me, I don't have a problem not talking, not having devices or anything for 10 days. I'm super jazzed about that. I'm disappointed that I won't be able to write down my thoughts of things that come to me during that experience. Because as I said, my memory, not so great. And I'm worried that I'm gonna lose it. But I think that and I'm not a meditator. I don't know how to meditate. I understand the value, so I'm challenging myself to better connect in that capacity. So I'm excited for the experience and to be disconnected from the world. But as I said, like I would love to, I have no doubt my mind is going to do exceptional things, like exceptional. And my only concern is that I won't be able to write them down. So I'm going to have to remember them 10 days later.
You know, with that, I would add you are a meditator. You just didn't label it as such. So
Right.
you do run, so you do have an opportunity to meditate. And I
I
would
did.
also
You're making me get inspired to get back to running, let me tell
good.
you. Yes, yes, it's
That's
been a few years. It's been a few years, yeah.
there's nothing stopping you, right? And if
No,
you're
nothing.
making those positive connections of when you did it, then those are the motivating factors
Yeah.
for you to do
Mm,
it. Similar experiences, my mind goes a million miles a minute, but the one thing that I would recommend is if you are going to that retreat and you can't write it down, then if you forget, then it wasn't
what's meant to
the
be.
highest priority. But if you do
Right.
have something in your head that is super impactful, then you'll make the connections in your brain to continue on with that thought to make it reality. So
Ugh,
I enjoy all the things. Like what did one time? The most beautiful music is the music that's never recorded. I love playing
right.
guitar, and I love creating music, and my wife always said, "Why don't you record?" I'm like, "No, because it takes away in the
There's
moment, and we
or
just should
you.
enjoy the
Right.
flow." And those thoughts that come in and those inspirational things that come in, it's not all meant to be captured. A lot of it's meant for you, and that should also be, in my opinion, the water to keep on with those pathways to find the moments to get more thoughts. And eventually you're going to have one that's like, this song is the one that should be recorded. That you'll find it. It'll come. So don't think you have to keep all the thoughts on paper. They're
Yeah,
all just for
I
you.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because my colleagues are like, "Just alone with your thoughts for 10 days? Like, that sounds horrible." I'm like, "Does it though?" Like, that's how magic is made. Like, just you and your thoughts and this in this incredibly quiet environment. When are we given that opportunity? Or like, that is such a beautiful thing that I've been gifted to be accepted into this program. And I'm excited. Lock me in a room. You know, like I
Right.
want to see what the universe can what I can connect with, and I'm truly excited about it. And there are moments in my life over the past month or so and I'm like, "Oh, am I too busy to make this happen? Maybe I'll just say no to this opportunity." And then I'm like, then I recalled or remembered that it actually is an opportunity. How many people get the opportunity to literally be still, be free of everything that we feel is mandatory or I don't know what the right words would be, feel connected to and just feel connected to ourselves, our spirit, our mind, our breathing all of that good stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, this conversation is really making this is such the perfect time because I was wondering if maybe I'm too busy. You know, we've got stuff to do for the business. Can I actually leave for 10 days? And hell yeah, I can.
But
Because I need to do this. Yeah.
you said something really interesting. I like to highlight. You said, how many of us are given the opportunity?
Right?
I would
Yes.
like to change your mindset. And instead of waiting for it to be given, you need to take it.
I like this. Okay. Yes.
There's nothing stopping you for taking the opportunity for yourself. And I think that's also one of the largest hurdles of our human nature right now is that everything is buying the time for us. We don't have a choice. We don't feel we have a choice. So
Mhm.
when we do put a device down or we do have a moment, we absolutely look for something else to occupy that time. And the reality is we need to take action and say, I'm going for a run. I don't care what the world is doing. I can go for a run. I don't care about the business right now. I need to take time for me because the reality is most of the time you are, or the person who owns a business is a reflection of the business. So if you don't take time
Right.
for yourself, then your business will suffer for it. If you take time for yourself to better yourself, your business will benefit for it. And so we feel that I think, anyways, we're losing our value. We think we're gaining the value, but the reality is we're losing it. And we need to shift, again, my opinion, the mindset of waiting for things to happen versus we need to take action.
Yes. I love that. So, Wolfgang, as we start to wind down the conversation now, I'm curious what your advice for a new educator coming into higher ed might be.
Oh, that's a good question because
Sorry.
I'm not like, I don't have my bachelor's and I don't really feel like my journey is my journey, and for me to impose any advice on someone on their own journey, I am always careful because the reality is we all have our own journeys. We all have different starting points, different endpoints. And then for me to say, "This is the advice for you to go on your teaching journey," like, I don't know if that would that yeah, it wouldn't sit well. But I will say to anybody, we live once. We all have a journey. I really look at life through the lens of, if I die today, am I okay with all the decisions I made? Or am I going to saying, I should have, I should have. The world is huge and small at the same time. Go live it. No one's going to care about how much money you have in the bank. No one's going to care about your titles at the end of the day. They're going to care about the impact you made in the lives of other people.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us on the Educator Experience podcast. I cannot be more excited about what you shared, your journey, and the impact that you're having on those around you and for our listeners as well. So thank you.
Thanks for inviting me. This was super fun, actually. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Educator Experience. We hope you're walking away feeling connected, inspired, and just a little bit more supported on your journey. Ready to go a little bit deeper? Join the Educator Experiences community and check out our courses and workshops specifically designed to support new educators as they navigate the ups, downs, and everything in between. You'll find it all at educatorexperiences.com. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with a fellow educator and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Together, we're building a vibrant community rooted in support and connection. See y'all next Monday.